It was only yesterday, I feel like, that we were talking about a powerful new handheld coming, hopefully at some point in the future. But today on the Pop Off PC Mag Show, we talk about video games. We're not talking about the Nintendo Switch. We're not talking about the Switch OLED. We're not talking about the Switch Pro. We're not talking about the Vita. No one's talking about the Vita. We are talking about the Valve Steam Deck. Valve just announced that they are putting out a handheld PC, a very Switch-like device, and it's coming out December Q1 next year, next couple of months here. So we're going to talk about it. And joining me here today is Matt Buzzy.
Hello.
And Will Greenwald.
I was talking about the Vita.
Whoever would listen.
Right. So the Valve Steam Deck, not the Stream Deck. There's a lot of things you can make.
Bad day to launch the Stream Deck at the same time, coincidentally. They announced a new one.
So this was rumored earlier this year. I think people are calling it the Steam Pal, but it's official. It is a handheld PC that Valve is putting out, and it can run your Steam games. There'll be a dock for it. It is like a Nintendo Switch, but with kind of with more power and just a lot of the kind of functionality you expect from a PC. So just kind of like initial reactions from you guys about this thing.
I think unlike a lot of the hardware, including from Steam and also things like Stadia and other devices that are coming with this is the first one that actually sort of right away made me interested in it conceptually. And I know that a lot of those things that I just alluded to failed or weren't supported for very long, or it's really easy to be cynical about those. And fairly so, the company's kind of waffled on actually supporting it. So this one, though, conceptually, I get it. And a lot of that is the Switch. I think a lot of it is owed to the Switch's success and being like, hey, it's pretty cool to play like modern powered games on a big screen handheld, and having the option to dock it and just having the option to play your library kind of at the TV or away from the TV. So reservations aside about how the hardware looks and feels, because I won't know that until I hold one. My gut reaction was I actually see a use case for this for myself.
Oh, you will.
I'm interested in it, but I'm also super skeptical after looking at the Steam controller and Steam machines and Steam Link box. And yeah, I'm just generally skeptical sort of about it because, again, also I was a Vita fan. I can't deny that it failed. And I even liked the NVIDIA Shield Portable, which was a really cool Android-based gaming device that was like built into a gamepad, and that was really cool too. But I think, one second, it's all out.
I'm gonna guess that's Will's cat.
Yeah, my cat was screaming a bit, probably about the Steam Deck.
It too loves the Vita.
Yeah, if only. Nintendo's proven it can work, but also Nintendo is kind of the only company that has been able to make portable gaming work in the last 2 decades. So, no, 3 decades. So
yeah,
there is that.
The Game Boy, yeah. Okay, no, keep going.
And like, again, this looks like a lot of power, a lot of really cool technology. It is more powerful than even the new Switch because they aren't updating the processor, but that isn't enough to make it a really appealing handheld game system when the Switch is out there. So we're gonna have to see how it goes.
So between those two, I'm actually probably closer to Buzzy's end as far as excitement goes. Yeah, having been such a big Switch fan for the past 4 years, just the idea of a device, a handheld device I can play like just anything that just that obliterates the separation between like handheld games and console games and PC games. I'm all for that. I'm all for being able to play my games on the go in any context I want to play them. As far as the core appeal of this thing goes, I'm like completely sold. But that's not, device isn't just its core appeal, it's also the specifics about what it is. So let's talk about some of those specifics. Will, you mentioned the power as a big potential selling point for this thing. They did announce these custom chips that they're using. I'm going to try to pull it up unless somebody already knows and can be.
I do have it. Yeah, it's an AMD APU, which is what they make for laptops, which is to handle both the graphics and the processing. It's Zen 2, which is not AMD's Zen 3 is their latest platform. I think Zen 2 launched in 2019. But you also don't need the latest like high-end desktop class stuff for something like this. It does say because of this, it can run AAA games. It can run sort of the latest titles. I am inclined to believe that based on my own testing of many laptops. I recently did a bunch of testing on some laptops with integrated graphics for a piece I'm doing on how well you can actually game on laptops that don't have a graphics card. And those games are either more capable than you think, meaning they're just capable of running games at 30 frames per second, or actually surprisingly capable for titles like Rainbow Six Siege or Apex. Games that are a bit, laptops that are a bit newer, at least the ones that are from a few years ago, less so. But if those can kind of do it, then I think this actual dedicated chip made for gaming specifically, working with AMD to make this device for this specific purpose. I do believe the power will probably be there. I don't know if you're going to do all the bells and whistles, and certainly ray tracing and everything is a stretch, but
well, it won't even have to, because we know it's a 16 by 10 like so 800p screen. So you think just not having to target those higher resolutions will let them have gains in other areas potentially too.
That'll definitely help, but because it'll have like a dock and like they said it can output at 4K, I guess in theory, I'm really curious about just how much frame rate will die when it's connected to a TV or a monitor. Like what sort of total drop off will it be jumping from 800K to 800p to 2160p?
Yeah, if it's not doing the same thing the Switch is, and it's actually trying to upscale to these resolutions, then that does seem like a big ask if you're going to pop it under 4K TV.
Yeah, I think the appeal for me at least is definitely in a handheld mode. But a potential caveat with the handheld mode is we got the first looks of this thing, and I think a lot of our first reactions it looks huge. It looks really like a really big boy.
Yeah. Reminds me of the Wii U gamepad.
Yes, that was also a huge boy. Yeah, so it's got because it has again it's a 16 by 10 screen, so it's like 7 inches. It has these touchpad things in the bottom, and the button layout is very strange.
Everything's at the top. Yeah. It's also it's a foot long. It's not just thick. It's a foot. It's almost a foot long. It's
like a pound and a half. It's like 4 triggers.
And even the Switch kind of after a long session is feels a little heavy. So I don't know. People who have held it said, I've seen a couple anecdotal things on Twitter. People got an early look at it. Said that
we should say it's IGN.
It's IGN.
Ziff Davis's own IGN.
Yes, fellow partner
so please
company.
Look at that if you're interested.
That it's more comfortable than it looks once you start playing with it. So
hopefully the button layout on the top is what really weirds me out, because it's like the face buttons are directly next to the analog sticks, which seems super uncomfortable, and it's all to like make room for these like echoes of Steam controller like touchpads, I guess.
Now I will go to bat for that though. I like the touchpads on the Steam controller. I thought that was a cool idea to try to bring to like just have to open up PC compatibility in a gamepad. Whether or not it succeeded or not is another question. But conceptually, that's something conceptually that I was always on board with.
Because this is running all these PC games, I was thinking of like, well, I probably won't want to play a lot of like strategy titles and stuff like that. But if the touchpad does actually work, like vaguely like a mouse at least, you can get a little cursor action on games like that with an overhead view. So I don't know. Again, that goes in the same bucket as is it comfortable to hold? It's like, does it work?
Well, why couldn't they have fit in like a PS Vita back touchpad then?
Your fingers have to be a foot long to reach into the middle like the Vita.
It's a PS Vita idea, and they want this thing to succeed. Will, I have a question for you. Having just you just reviewed the Valve Index, another piece of expensive Valve hardware. What do you think about that as far as like just like industrial design? I guess I'm trying to say, like just the holding the controllers and whatnot, like just as a piece of hardware.
It's great. I mean, the headset is pretty much just your average VR headset, like any other tethered one, like what the Oculus Rift used to be, what the HTC Vive is like. It's just the same headset as usual, higher refresh rate, which is nice. The controllers are the big thing, and that's sort of what's really interesting. But even the controllers aren't really perfect in their design. They're like these weird touch strips. They're like just up and down touchpad surfaces. Like they're not wide enough to actually be full touchpads. And I would sort of forget that they're there with my thumbs on the analog sticks, and then there's the face button. Like it's arranged in a weird way, and it seems like the Steam Deck's also arranged in a weird way. And unless the Steam Deck also can track your individual fingers as you move them, I think there are going to be some control hiccups.
Okay. Yeah, so you see that was kind of the through line I was trying to find there. Now, another transition here. The Valve Index is like $1,000.
Yeah.
The Steam Deck starts at $400, which I think is a very aggressive price.
They have to be taking a big loss on this.
Yeah, Gabe said as much. She said it was painful. and people compare it to like a used car salesman being like, oh, you're killing me here. It's like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. You gotta haggle them down. But yeah, it starts at $400 for the 64 gigabyte model, and then from there you pay more for higher storage options, but it's the same specs across all the models. I think that's a very appealing price. $150 more than the OLED Switch. Same price as a diskless PS5.
I will say that base model is, I don't want to say useless because there's a lot of small Steam games, but it is 64 gigs is borderline useless for gaming. Okay,
right, but
it has a micro SD card.
Yeah.
But the Switch itself doesn't have great loading times, and like loading giant PC games, I think, is going to be even like harder unless you actually put in a MVN. Sorry, what's the weird tiny SSD thing?
The NVMe, which is what the two bigger storage capacities are. They are NVMe SSDs. The base one,
the drives with the horrible screws.
Yeah, the 64 gigabyte model is eMMC, which is flash. The two larger ones are SSD based. So that jump up from $400, it's $130 more to get the 256 gigabyte. You're also getting the SSD. It comes with like case and stuff too. But it does say on the site faster storage. It does specifically cite that. The SSD is also quicker than the 64. So, and then plus you have to pay for an SD card. And if you get 100 gigs of that, then you're kind of, you're close to the price of the other one anyway.
Plus, if you're on battery, you want this thing to, you don't want to be waiting for load times when your battery is dying. They said the battery life is between like 2 and 8 hours, which is about in line with the Switch.
Yep. The okay, I totally blanked out on what we were talking about storage wise. Yeah, just like if anything, the PS5 and Xbox Series X have sort of like shown us what a big difference is having a proper SSD is compared to using flash memory or an SD card. So like spending that extra, I think, is going to be a big factor, especially with big PC games if you're expecting to run them on the thing. And yeah, I mean, that's a factor, and it does push the price up significantly higher.
Yeah. But again, the fact that it's a PC, I think, is also they compare also now to other gaming PCs is something that gets brought into.
Yeah, so that's the other big thing of this. Obviously, the Steam library is the draw. I was like, okay, well, I want to play games. Some games I need my desk set up. I need competitive, like multiplayer games. You want the monitor, you want the high refresh, you want your mouse and keyboard and everything. But there's a load of games where I was like, I would like to not be tethered to my desk. I can go hang out on the couch in the living room and play a ton of titles. And so
you could do with the Vita and a PS4.
That's true, but
we'll get to the Vita. We'll get to
the Vita. The cross progression automatically on everything you have on Steam being on the same account, you could get to your cloud saves. That's the appeal. But also, as you mentioned, the fact that you can install other platforms on this. Valve even spoke about that, basically hinting like if you want to put Epic on this, you would be a bit roundabout. It is Linux based, but you can also install Windows on this thing, it seems. So you are getting a bit more than like this closed off handheld that others are, which opens up stuff for mods and customization. And it's a little bit more than just like, here's a closed system box where you only play these type of things. Of course, the people who don't have any interest in tinkering with that stuff can just use the out of the box version as well.
Yeah,
I would say people who don't have interest in that wouldn't be getting a Steam Deck to begin with.
I don't know. A lot of people don't have gaming PCs. I think it was like an alternative to like a $1,000 laptop or even more expensive desktop. It's like this is how I'm going to play PC games.
Yeah, right now, obviously, people, Steam is crashing trying to get reservations in, so like the hardest of the hardcore are doing it right now. But yeah, I'm a little more optimistic, and it's kind of getting at Buzzy what you were just saying there. The Vita failed because when Sony stopped supporting it, that was it. It's a closed platform. You need the manufacturer to support a platform like that to survive. But a PC, even if Valve just totally abandons this thing, and given their track record, that's extremely possible. Like as a PC, it will still be able to do a lot of things without like Valve having to do like I was trying to articulate this. Like you get a lot of stuff just for free. Like you can just your games will just carry over. Mm-hmm. It's Linux based, but they've talked about, I think they've called it Proton, a sort of compatibility layer they tried to build so that Windows stuff can come over more easily. Although there's a report saying that stuff like, I think it was Apex and Destiny and stuff with like anti-cheat software, they were kind of having some issues with, so they probably just have to work around that. But But yeah, that angle of it to me makes it more appealing. Even even compared to other Valve hardware failures of like, it's just a handheld gaming PC. Like even regardless of who's making it, it's just an appealing idea to me.
And I have seen, for what it's worth, like other PC manufacturers and things with prototypes over the years. There's been more than one. But I know Alienware showed off one. I did like a hands-on with it. It wasn't like a final product or anything, but it was a Switch-like shaped device that had 2 joysticks and ran PC games, and they had this layer of custom. I think people have seen the appeal of this and have been sort of like picking away at it. And I do think, as much as Valve has hit these hardware issues in the past, like who's better positioned to have built-in access to the game library that exists in the gaming industry. And yeah, as far as you said, having support for it, I don't know if they stop supporting it and it couldn't update Steam, then you can't use it anymore and it's bricked, or if they stop supporting it, it can still access Steam and play games. It just isn't getting anything new.
Right. Like I wonder if anyone has a Steam machine right now, could they still play things on it? Like I would guess yes. It might be, maybe it's just out of date as far as like security or something.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not sure.
Does anyone have a Steam machine?
That's
someone would have to have one in the first place, which
hypothetical question. Yeah.
But yeah, I think just the tenor of this, obviously, like anecdotal evidence is not quite sufficient data, but the tone of reaction to this is on Twitter and everything, and talking to you guys is mostly positive compared to, there are skeptics, but like mostly positive compared to like, why would I want the Steam machine, or why would I want this or that? So I think if the enthusiasm there, they'll keep doing it. I think the issue with the other things was no one bought them, so they stopped.
Yeah. I think this is also just further proof that the Nintendo Switch is very popular and beloved and a good idea, and that people are taking from that. And I think they should. I love not just Nintendo games, but also the idea of playing, like I'm playing Tony Hawk on my Switch. Like that game rules, Doom Eternal even. So I can play that on a device where they can run a little better. I can have all my existing, I was looking at my Steam library, be like, I would play Vanquish again on a handheld. I would play the first Dead Space and Batman Arkham Asylum. So let's go. I am genuinely enthused about that. Yeah, I pre-ordered one.
It's a great replay machine. I also got one in pre-order. Well, it doesn't sound like you got one in pre-order. Doesn't sound like that's where your level of enthusiasm is.
But that's fair. But that's also a very valid position.
Yeah,
we know plenty of people who feel this way.
Yes, I'm glad we have someone who's not gung-ho on it represented here.
I think I would be super excited about this. I just feel like I've kind of seen it before in a few different ways. Yeah, like not even Vita jokes. I mean, like you said, we've seen a bunch of like concepts, and like I've seen lots of gaming tablets you can snap controllers on, and they just go nowhere.
Yeah.
And something about this just is making me feel skeptical, but on paper it seems like there's a ton of potential. And hey, if it just can straight up have Windows on it, or if a lot of stuff you can do with that, or even just break into Linux, like get out of the whatever system Steam itself is and just do whatever you want with it. That's awesome.
Yeah, whatever you want.
But
like running GMG.
So you don't want it to fail, but you're not going to be preemptively excited or think it's an instant success, which is
I think as objective tech critics, we shouldn't want anything to succeed or fail. I think we should just observe what happens and make our judgments. And we will do just that when the Steam Deck, I think they said the first one's supposed to be coming out this December. We'll see about that. But eventually, some of us will get one and we'll talk about it. But in the meantime, Buzzy, Will, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you next time.